Oh, nice.
I'll always take a little product placement. We'll take a plug any chance we can get, my brother. We'll take a plug. This is episode 3 of the Beast Coast podcast. And Mike and myself, who just spoke to each other for the first 2 weeks, we've decided to up the ante by adding my brother from another.
Long time.
He's the Eric Schwartz, once known as Natural Guy, the natural icon, who's also there with someone better looking than himself.
This is Biggie Smalls, and this is Lindley.
Wow. All right. Two people better looking than himself. Well, thanks to one boy and one girl.
Yeah. And there's two more somewhere in this house.
Biggie and Lindley for joining us today. But easy. We go way back, my brother. We go way back.
Yes. Long time.
You know, Eric was the first person I met in the industry.
Really?
Back when I first started at the Olympia, yeah, my first sales trip was to the Arnold in 2011, and the first booth we went to was Animal. I remember meeting you, and you gave me a bunch of T-shirts, and dude, I wore those T-shirts into the ground. Like my wife made me throw them away. So it's a special place in my heart.
Awesome, bro.
Yeah,
that's great. That's super cool.
Me and Easy always believed in that, like hospitality, right? And like sort of greasing the wheel and taking care of people, making them feel like family and whatnot, because like. When you find like sort of like-minded individuals, right, and like people who are on the same page, which is rare, right? Like you want to sort of like bring them into the fold the best you can, right?
Yeah, and I think that was a genuine thing for you and I. Like we enjoyed the people in the industry, and we enjoyed that kind of bro camaraderie. So we kind of want to spread that around.
I mean, it's funny because we used to joke around and say it like cynically, but like there were times when it was sort of taken for granted the concept of what me and Eric called good bro marketing. But it's not really marketing at all. It's just being a good human being and treating people with decency and kindness or whatever, generosity or whatever. And then generally people respond positively. Right? Like, you know, there's no deep psychology involved in it, right? But people who see the world through a different lens saw that like as a marketing tactic, and me and Eric were like, well, what do you mean you just treat people decently?
Well, that's the thing, it was authentic. It wasn't like we were trying to just win somebody over for the sake of winning them over.
Yep.
You know, and I remember you and I many conversations with consumers, and we were always honest with them. We never tried to fool them about what the products could do or try to get them to buy more than they needed. You know, we were always honest with people.
Right, because we were consumers first, right? We were, you know, and I never lose sight of that fact, right? Like your origins, especially when we talk about sports nutrition and your origins in that subculture of training and bodybuilding and powerlifting and using supplements and trying to eat properly and all that stuff. Your origins, the place you came from to arrive eventually at working in the industry, was your own real life. Your own daily real life and your own personal passions and the things that, you know, you were already neck deep in it before you ever got a job in the industry, you know?
Right.
So you conveyed that, like you say, once again, authenticity, right? But you just convey your own personal experience as a regular consumer to other consumers, and, you know, they vibe with that. They connect with that. Like, oh, this guy's not just trying to sell me a bill of goods.
Right.
And you could, it's funny with this industry, like you can tell who the outsiders are, and it's such a close knit industry and like a brotherhood where the outsiders you'd always be weary of. You know, a company would hire an ad agency or they'd hire a director of marketing who had, you know, never took a supplement in their life, never stepped foot in a gym. And you could see that, you know, you could tell just from their personality.
Sure.
Yeah. They didn't understand the consumer. They couldn't connect with them.
Right. I mean, it's like, I think it's like largely about it's an incestuous industry, right?
Yeah.
But so much of it is experiential, and so much of that sort of stuff is intimate, right? Like Mike and I, the first 2 weeks of the podcast, we spent a lot of time talking about nostalgia and, you know, our roots in lifting and training and using supplements and fitness in general and whatnot. And if you don't have that backstory to bring to the table, then people feel that. People feel like you can't relate to them, You know what I mean? And when they feel like they're just talking to somebody who might just be marketing to them and sees them as a dollar sign, they feel that immediately. You know?
When you left Animal, the person who replaced you was an outsider, and we went to go meet with them. And all of your magazines, or the ones you didn't take back home, were still in your office. And she's like, "What am I supposed to do with these? Like, do I throw them away?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
I actually need to get those back. I hope they didn't throw them out, because I would love to have them back.
Read them, right? Read them. Imagine that, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you could learn a lot of great marketing lessons.
I still do. I still have, you know, like a lot of my collection of old OG magazines, you know, from the 90s. And I still read them. I still go to them for inspiration. There's
a couple of ads that just stuck in my head that just hit me, like, that I still recall from back in the 80s and 90s. Like,
it's a perfect segue, Mike.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the segment that we start Beast Coast podcast with is the concept of the Mount Rushmore, your own personal Mount Rushmore, right? Your rankings of things that are significant, right? Your ranking of whatever that might be, right? And last week we did our 4 favorite training songs and why they're significant to us, right? And obviously to a large degree, it's sort of off the top of your head. So if you ask me for my 4 now, it might be different than what my 4 were last week, and so on and so forth, right? So none of it is etched in stone. But the first week we did our Mount Rushmore of supplements.
Okay.
Right? And I'm not gonna like frame it too much and make you say like what are the 4 best supplements you ever had or anything like that. But and Mike could probably elaborate more, right? But he and I sort of spoke to like 4 supplements that were really just significant to us in our lives. Right.
Okay.
And I did so, and I didn't even talk about G-code stuff. I went before, you know, not to be a shill. I went before G-code, and I just talked about like sort of my formative years and this stuff that was significant to me. And Mike did the same. Mike can elaborate more, but we were like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if Eric could guide us through his Mount Rushmore of personal supplements, and then we could just react to them if we have our own experiences or understanding of those products as well.
Okay. So brand specific, or you do want the specific?
I don't know.
Brand,
did I cover that?
Not
Mike?
Just the category.
Did I cover that? No. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we did the actual product. Like, I think I had
the actual product, and you know the actual product, and tell us why. And like I said, man, if I ask you this now, or then we ask you this, you know, a month from now, it could be completely different answers. So
it's probably going to be older stuff.
Yeah.
That's what immediately comes to mind. The first time I tried this, or the first time I tried that.
Yeah, a lot
really worked.
A lot of ours were entirely nostalgic and not entirely about like our earliest years training and our first supplements and the stuff that was significant to us, like on our journey.
Yeah. So, not just saying this because we worked there, but Animal Pack was very influential. It was, I don't know if it was the single first. I think the first supplement I ever tried was a protein powder. It was in someone else's house. It was Weider Dynamic Muscle Builder.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't buy it. It was, like I said, it was in somebody else's house. We worked out in their basement, and I tried that. So that was the first supplement I actually touched. But I think the first one I bought was Animal Pack, and that just taught me like the foundation, like what's important to have your basics in a row, and that's kind of stuck with me over the years. Like having your basic vitamins and minerals is really important.
Sure.
So definitely that. I'm gonna say for sure the first time I took creatine. It was EAS, and they were the only one that had it at the time. It was crazy expensive. I remember going to GNC. I don't know. I maybe paid $50 or $60 for the bottle. I don't remember the size, but it wasn't a lot.
Right.
And I do have a quick funny story about it.
Yeah.
You know, they used to tell you to load.
Right.
Take 4 or 5 gram doses in the day.
20 grams a day, sure.
20 grams.
When it was not cheap.
Right. So I worked a regular job. I don't remember what time I got off of work, but I was training later in the day. I go to GNC. I think I was working in a mall too at the time. I go to GNC. I buy it. I get home, about to go to the gym. And I'm so excited about taking this. I'm so hyped about it that I take all 20 grams in one shot.
Right.
Drive to the gym with my buddy. We start warming up, and I got to run to the bathroom. And the floodgates open. That's all I'm going to say. So I learned my lesson that day.
I remember the phosphagen, right? Creatine.
Yeah.
And it was my first experiences with it were with Now, it wasn't Phosphagen HP, which had carbs in it and stuff.
Right.
It was just
a
Phosphagen.
pure creatine. Yeah.
Right. So it was just creatine monohydrate, and it was in like a small bottle, like the dream bottle that you held up
Yeah,
initially.
small white bottle.
That size.
It was similar to
So
that.
I want to say maybe it was only 100 grams, right? Something like that. It was a small amount, right? And I remember, you know, I was in high school, and I remember getting my hands on it because they were selling it at the gym in Brigantine, the fitness center that I worked at, that I had managed to finagle a job at. And, you know, I got my hands on an initial bottle of Phosphagen, and, you know, didn't even really know what it was, like, to a full extent, right? You know, you're taking it blindly, and based on, you know, whatever you're reading in the magazines about creatine being hot.
And they hyped it up back then.
Well, EAS was linked to Muscle Media.
They were smart. They built it up for months before it was on the market. So they built up all this anticipation.
Yep. So, you know, a little backstory to that, right? It was EAS was created by the same company as Muscle Media and Muscle Media 2000, right? Bill Phillips. And prior to that, he had made like an anabolic reference guide and gotten like a lot of his following in the subculture from that, you know, at a time when talking about steroids was exceptionally taboo. He had a whole book about it. But then he also did a thing that's like one of the most brilliant marketing moves ever in any industry, let alone ours, was supplement stores and gyms. He gave a supplement review guide.
I remember that
for free. And it was like substantial. It was like a thick, legit, maybe a couple 100-page book.
Yeah.
And you could get it for free at the gyms and the supplement stores. And it was full of information. It was full of reviews of a bunch of products, but it very subtly slid in the hype for his own stuff. And like, man, talk about something that was influential, and powerful in terms of hyping up, you know, whatever products the EAS was going to make. And you know, they were talking, you know, about creatine, you know, in a very positive, hype-ish manner then, and then all this boom, Phosphagen comes out. You remember that book?
Yeah, I totally remember it. And you're right, it was very subtle. I think it took me, I'm a little slow, but took me a little while to realize I was being marketed to.
Yeah. Sure.
And what's different about it back then is like nowadays we have so much distraction with the phone and social media. There wasn't much distraction. So when we had books like that and the Animal Owner's Manual, I would just read them over and over again.
Sure.
I go into the bathroom, I don't have a cell phone, I'm reading those books like 10 times over.
Of course.
You know, so that stuff really sunk in. That was brilliant marketing on their part.
Yeah, the physical copies of things, right? Like having a book in your hand, having a magazine in your hand, like that was powerful. And like you said, if it was something that spoke to you in whatever way or connected with you in whatever way, you'd read it cover to cover 100 times, right?
Or you get one table.
You get one that you borrowed from your buddy and you never give it back to him, right? Or vice versa, right? And like the cover would be off of the you know, the book or the magazine because it was just so beat up, so tattered, and it got like passed around in your circle.
Yeah.
It happened so many times, you know, the Arnold Encyclopedia, you know.
Yes.
And the beauty of that stuff that we don't really have anymore is it was long form content and it told you the why. Like you learned why you were supposed to take creatine and why it worked. Nowadays, it's like, because this guy told me to take it and that's it.
And it's a quick 15-second TikTok with a bullet point.
Right.
And on to the next.
Right. It's not made for it was made for a longer, more sustained attention span. Right.
Yeah.
And everything was a deeper dive by its very nature. You know?
Yeah.
So
all right, so we covered Animal Pack. And
Animal Pack, right?
EAS.
Which like I said, Animal Pack was one of my four when we did our first episode. Cool. Phosphagen or just creatine monohydrate in general is your second one by EAS.
I'm going to put this down, and this is not in any way to say it's the best pre-workout I've ever tried, but it was the most influential, and that was the original NO Explode.
Okay.
So I had tried Ultimate Orange back in the day. That really predates the real pre-workout category.
Yeah. That was the original though.
Yeah. But then like nobody else did one after that. And then years later, NO Explode came out and they really created that category. And I wasn't a big caffeine consumer at the time. I didn't even drink coffee at the time. I didn't like the flavor. Now I love it, but I didn't back then. And I remember the first time I took it, I actually got a headache. I think just because it was so much caffeine that I'm not used to. And I'm in the gym and I'm like, this sucks. I got a headache. But, you know, I kept taking it and it got better and better. And it really opened my eyes to the pre-workout category. So I'm definitely going to put that in there as well.
That was my first too. I know.
Okay. Very cool.
I remember that first bottle, right? The first bottle had like the
clear red.
Right. Clear red bottle, but the label had like it's like it had like a psychedelic, it's not the right word.
Like a hologram type.
Yeah.
Right. Hologram mirror kind of thing that reminded you, like, do you remember the stickers that you could get out of the vending machine and it'd be like heavy metal stickers?
Yes,
or like biker stickers, and it would like shine into like a reflect in like a disco ball kind of way.
Right.
Those early NO Explode labels were like that, and didn't taste great. There were only a couple flavors initially, but that thing took the world. That product took the world by storm.
Yeah, and somewhere along the line, they changed something in the formula because it didn't feel the same. Right. They changed the label, they changed the formula. It just never felt.
Happens all the time, you know. Well, it went from that initial product, right, to then the Ronnie Coleman era, right, where they were the hottest brand, and then they signed Mr. Olympia, you know, to a historic contract at the time, and you know, and they raised their game, right? So the labels got slicker, everything got slicker.
Yeah, they sold me on the whole cycle. It was the NO Explode. They had two other products.
It was an arginine-based capsule.
Right.
And it was Cell Mass, which was the creatine.
Cell Mass, there you go. Right. They sold me on that whole thing.
Might have been like Nitrox or something.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a better memory than me.
For some stuff, right? For the really important stuff like Cell Mass.
I'm having a tough time picking a fourth, but just because this was very strong, and I'm sure I had other versions of like the ECA stack, but the original Rip Fuel, that sticks in my head. So I'm going to go with that.
Sure. Yeah. Mike's not getting a word in edgewise because I'm responding too quickly to what he's saying. But, you know, ECA stuff is interesting, right? I never was into the pills, right? I was never into the capsules necessarily. Like Rip Fuel, sure. I came across it, Diet Fuel. Like I remember those Twin Lab ads and how Twin Lab was like, position themselves as like for drug-free bodybuilders and all that. If you remember that,
they were using Skip LaCour as
their
face.
And Ron Coleman, not Ronnie Coleman, Ron Coleman, right? The ads were really cool. They were really well done, well executed, and those products were hot, man. They were like they're in the glass bottles. They were like one of the biggest brands for a while there, big time. And I was never into the pills, right? Or then like the stuff that came after it, like the stacker with the ECA, with the ECA stack, which is ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin for people who don't know, right? But what I talked about in episode one of the things that made my Mount Rushmore easy, and I think something that you'll appreciate, or comparable products, right, that don't exist as much anymore, were the ABB RTDs at the gym that had ephedrine in them, right?
Yes. Turbo T? Did that have ephedrine?
There was Turbo T, which didn't have ephedrine, but there was Rip Force and Speed Stack and Cutting Force.
Blue Thunder had everything in it.
Blue Thunder. I talked about Blue Thunder. Blue Thunder, I said Blue Thunder, right, was a kitchen sink product. Somehow it had like 32 grams of protein plus the ephedrine in it.
Probably didn't have half the stuff in it. But.
All over the place, right? And it tasted weird. It tasted kind of funky, but I said, it tasted powerful, right?
Yes.
And it looked powerful. The name, right? Blue Thunder, right? Like the bottle was blue and it had this crazy looking label on it, and the American Bodybuilding logo was like a jacked up eagle. You know what I mean? Like young and impressionable, right?
Carbo Force.
I said I remember drinking that, and I said it's like the taste of it, I said it's like almost like etched into my sense memory, easy, right? Because I was like a teenager, right? And I was walking to the gym because I didn't have a car yet, right? And I lived in Brigantine, so like, you know, you're at the ocean, you're at the shore, so there's like, I said I remember smelling the salt air And I remember the music that I would listen to, right? When I would go to train, the music from that era that I would listen to. And I remember the taste of Blue Thunder, like, and it was just those drinks are like etched into my mind. I think anybody who either went to a gym a lot or worked at a gym during that era, like, had a connection to those kind of RTD drinks that I said, you know, we live in like a canned energy drink era now. There isn't much of that anymore, you know?
No, I mean, it's kind of a little coming back with the hydration category now.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, there's nothing like Carbo Force like they had back then.
There's no such thing as a bottled carb drink. I mentioned that to Mike earlier. I said,
carbs are shunned in society.
Right. I said, but the funny thing about that product is that every big dude that I knew loved that product. Right. But you know, and there had to be a reason why. that was a common thread among every like advanced.
It was a easy, delicious 100 grams of carbs.
100 grams of carbs. Yeah.
It was delicious. It was easy to take down. It digested easy.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
So I the first time I took Rip Fuel was back in, I think it was 14 in high school, and before a soccer game, somebody brought a bottle, and the whole team took Rip Fuel before the game.
At 14,
we lost our fucking minds, all of us. The game the game was a disaster. Kids are like spinning in circles. Kids are getting in fights, and this is like before I took a pre-workout. So I have fond memory of that stuff.
Well, did you know today, just as of the other day, if you were in New York, you would not be able to purchase that at 14 years old. Now you have to be 18 years old.
Yeah, Mike.
What do you guys think about that?
We talked about that. Yeah, Mike brought that up for sure.
What are your thoughts? I'm just curious.
I mean, like, none of us would have taken products as teenagers. That kind of sucks because we have fond memories of those times.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not for like too much government or state overreach. And my fear is it starts there, and then next thing you know, you need a prescription for vitamin C.
Yep.
You know, but I also at the same time, I don't think it's great that young kids are slamming 2, 3, 4 energy drinks in a day either. So.
No, there's a sweet spot there, Easy, that, you know, he and I alluded to this on a prior episode, right? But there's a sweet spot there, right? Where, in all honesty, like, you hear Mike's response, and I remember, I wasn't me personally, but I remember kids on the football team in my high school taking Rip Fuel before games, and they're, you know, we're talking freshmen in high school taking Rip Fuel, right? And same era. And Mike saying like the negative reactions that he and his teammates had to that. And the reason is because they had no business taking that product then, right? So like, we had talked about stuff like either, you know, incredibly high stim pre-workouts or pre-workouts that have, you know, and I always say this stuff, right? But like gray market ingredients in them, right? Or amphetamine analogs and that kind of stuff in it, right? If we're talking about SARMs, right? Or anything from the pro-hormone category, right? And then like, you know, anything that's like potentially dangerous, like, you know, fat burners with weird stims in there, or, you know, stuff like ephedrine or comparable to that, right? Like, young kids shouldn't be taking that, period, right? Like, and like, you know, not only from a legal standpoint, from an ethical standpoint, we don't market, like personally talking about G-Con, so we don't market to young folks on that level. But at the same time, like, using those products in my formative years is special to me. So like, the thought that, you know, I couldn't go buy a protein powder or aminos or, you know, the more innocuous kind of performance supplements or general health supplements, or, you know, products that are going to help me with my goals. I said I'm a process guy, right? Like, I love the process of things, and supplements are like part of your process, right? And the thought that like as a young person I wouldn't have access to some of that stuff that would help my process, I think that would have been to my detriment. So like there's a fine line, and like you feel like if there's going to be government intervention and oversight, it should be focused on the stuff that's actually dangerous.
Right.
You know?
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, the gray market stuff's not legal to begin with, so nobody should be buying it, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But like we had said earlier, you're just demonizing the kid who wants to excel at sports or you know, work out harder in the gym, who actually wants to take sports supplements. And
I'd rather have a kid take whey protein than McDonald's or some other shit, you know.
Yeah, and as with most legislation, it's too broad. It's anything other than whey protein, pretty much. It falls under this category.
Right. I'm assuming energy drinks are going to be under this category, right?
I think if they have anything other than caffeine in them, maybe.
All right. So here's a little skepticism coming back at you guys. The thing about some of these energy drink companies, or a lot of these energy drink companies, is that they're owned by big food, right, or big beverage or whatever, right? And if you're talking about Coca-Cola and Pepsi, like those are monsters, right, in terms of the marketplace and global reach, right? Like, and it's why, like, this is a sidebar, but where people will be like, "Oh man, like you guys should have a G code energy drink," and I'm like, "Yeah, man, no, like don't get me wrong,
so easy,
right?" And like, don't get me wrong, like I think energy drink, like we've had this conversation, like I don't think they're a replacement for a pre-workout, but I understand why people like them because they. I told them it's like a jacked up diet soda essentially, and they taste good and they're fizzy and they're cold.
It's the experience. Like, totally the experience.
You don't want a cup of coffee. You don't want a cup of coffee, but you're gonna have a canned energy drink that tastes like blue raspberry Sour Patch Kids. Like that's amazing. So I get why people like them, and I like them too. And there's a time and place for them. But I feel like the government cracking down on, say, like companies selling traditional sports nutrition products versus the government trying to crack down on, Wawa and 7-Eleven selling canned energy drinks that are made or distributed by the beverage giants. I think that's almost like two different games they're playing. And I would be shocked if, just based on special interest and lobbying, if they ever really went after, a canned energy drink made by Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Right. I would assume that a large part of like Monster's customer base is young people. Kind of their marketing is all like
big time. I mean, I see the allure already, man. I have Sienna's 11, and she's like, she'll talk like, and it's probably largely related to social media or what her friends are doing, right? I'm sure, but like Celsius is one that's popular with her, and she's like, "Oh, Dad, can you give me a peach Celsius?" I'm like, "You're 11 years old. What do you need an energy drink for? And he's like, "Oh man, I'm so tired. I'm so tired from all the sleeping."
11 years. Jeez.
But it's just the nature of things. It's just it's just a trickle down of society and what they see their parents doing or what they see their peers doing and what's available, what's out there, and it's like, oh, they want in on it too, And like I said, it's busy and bubbly and cold, and it tastes good. It's like, oh, why the hell wouldn't they want it? I get it.
And that's like the newest legislation they're trying to pass through because of tianeptine. Did you see this one?
No.
All right, so tianeptine's an opioid, or it is an opioid. I think it's scheduled as a drug. If it's not scheduled as a drug, it is a synthetic drug. It's not a dietary supplement. So people have been selling it over the counter at gas stations, and there's a few companies in the U.S. that were selling this stuff. And I guess Dick Durbin in Illinois is trying to pass a law based on tianeptine being illegal for MPL for all supplement companies. So you have to register every single product, every ingredient, everything you do, because of tianeptine. The problem is tianeptine's already illegal. You don't need more legislation because of this. So they're trying to pass through more legislation because of something that's already illegal, and it's just the FDA not doing their job.
Is it related to like kratom? Because the only reason I ask is because I know like there's been like you see kratom out there like sort of like adjacent to like CBD stuff or Delta 8, Delta 9, right? Cannabis products. You see kratom out there. And the thing that you hear about kratom is that like, and it's not unlike a lot of supplements, sports nutrition supplements, where it's got opioid effects, but it's found naturally, it's found in nature. It can be synthesized from whatever in nature and the sort of gray market area that's there. And so like, I hadn't even heard of tianeptine, but my understanding of like how kratom is classified and how it's sold and how potentially has addictive properties maybe
so I'll take kratom from time to time. I like it. Like I think it has good pain management benefits. It also gives
I've
you a bit of a euphoric feeling,
I've heard that,
similar to coffee though.
Okay.
Kratom it's just a ground up plant, pretty much.
Right.
Tianeptine is a drug made in a lab.
Okay.
That's where the difference is.
Okay.
So they're using that to pigeonhole in some law, basically. Okay.
Yeah, for mandatory product listings.
Interesting.
It's funny because shouts to Sco, shouts to my associate, the brilliant Mark Bernardi, right? He reached out to me the other day and he's like, he'll just like send me a text at random about like an idea of planting a seed, and then like he'll either he's being serious about it, like, and really planting a seed, or he's just like throwing it out there to get my reaction. But sent me a text about betel nut. Have you heard of that?
Betel nut, yeah.
Okay, is that how it's pronounced? All right, betel nut, right? And as I'm just initially doing just reading about what it is, like, literally put it in Google and betel nut comes up. See, I don't even know how to pronounce it, right? Betel nut comes up. And as soon as he said it to me, and once I Googled it, it reminded me of an episode of Bourdain's show, right? From back in the day.
Yep.
Where he was overseas in Asia. And he was like, he would be in some remote places sometimes, right? And he was like in a forest somewhere in Asia where like folks were like, kind of lived hard lives, right? Like third world, the very third world, lived like hard lives, did like hard labor all day. And the dudes who were out working in the fields were absolutely hammered on whatever substance it was.
Yep,
so when he said that betel nut to me and I looked it up, I immediately thought of Bourdain, and wouldn't you know it, it's the thing that these guys out in the in the Amazon or wherever the hell it was, or wherever it was in Asia, the jungles in Asia, were wasted on all day long, right? It's chewing on it like chewing tobacco, right? And it has like psychoactive properties. But it turns out that it's popping up in supplements in the US, and it's even in pre-workouts. And like I think that it's probably a stretch to say, I'm not talking about it like on a level where it's like some sort of like incredibly dangerous psychoactive ingredient, but I think that it might be comparable to like nicotine, and some of the effects of nicotine, and like I'm like a virgin when it comes to like nicotine, cigarettes, stuff, tobacco, stuff, products. I haven't really messed with them at all in my life, but always got the impression, right, that like there is a high that comes with like dip and chewing tobacco and that kind of stuff.
Definitely some kind of addiction to it,
right? Sure. And there's just like a buzz that comes with it, and apparently like the betel nut is like a more intense version of that. Mike, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I haven't taken the actual nut, but it used to be in Run Everything Labs' pre-workout and their fat burner, I believe.
See?
Probably
no kidding,
5-10 years ago.
No shit.
They took it out because there was reports that it did cause cancer. I think the cancer was more like a mouth cancer from chewing on the nuts than the actual ingredient that gives you the stimulant effect. Right. But yeah, like you said, it popped up in supplements years ago, and I guess it's popping up again.
Crazy. Yeah, crazy. Well, it caught me off guard, and I'm like, wow, like I remember that one, Bourdain episode, and for whatever reason, I made that connection. It turns out it was an actual thing, but then like if you saw the Bourdain episode and like their representation of like these folks using it, and then the thought that it might be in your supplements, it's like, and then here's the big one, right? That you could watch that Bourdain episode while you're getting ready to train and be sleeping your pre-workout into a shaker and drinking it, and be like, oh man, that's rough. I need to be them. And little do you know, you're chugging it, right?
It's probably dose dependent, right? Yeah. At a certain dose, it might be good for focus, and another dose, you're high as a kite. Like, you know what I mean?
I know, of course. Yeah.
So, as they say, the dose makes the poison.
Yeah, I think the dose makes the poison.
The dose makes the poison.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's one of those. I think kratom is similar I think it's in Indonesia. You have betel nut in South Asia. It's just like the coca leaf in South America, right? Like day laborers and people who work long hours depend on these things to get the job done and to carry through the day. It's when you start extracting the drugs from these and making the synthetic components like cocaine that it becomes a problem, because you've changed the dose.
Sure, and all that, right? Concentrated the dose, right? Synthesized it down, right? To say remove the impurities is not the right way to say it, right? But like, it's like the difference between eating a whole orange or making orange juice out of it, right? It's the same thing, and how chemically different that is, in terms of your ingestion of it. Yeah, crazy. It's a crazy landscape out there because, like I said, I feel like betel nut, and it sounds like innocuous, like it wouldn't set off any
right? It's a nut.
red flags, right? You're like, oh, it sounds natural. It's a nut, right? And it's like, and you could be ingesting it and not even realize it. It's pretty crazy.
You can market it as organic.
Right, organic betel nut. I think there might be an industry for that.
All the buzzwords. You can put all the plant-based. You can put all the buzzwords in there.
Plant-based. It is certainly plant-based. That's for sure.
And I just read an article recently. In Asia, there's, I guess they're called betel nut girls or something like that, and it's in the cities and towns. The younger girls, dress provocatively, who sell these betel nuts to the people who live there and tourists.
Wow.
Interesting. It's a big industry.
Wow. Makes sense. It makes sense, right? Especially if you're talking about like, the third world countries where the opportunities are so limited, and it's like, if they have, if some of the services that they can provide are providing, potentially intoxicating substances to tourists, you'll never go wrong with that in terms of trying to make some cash. That's for sure.
Yeah, I guess the important question is, do you guys have an importer for Asia? We could start something.
You could get anything you want on. Just go on Temu now.
Right.
Yeah, just get it shipped straight to your house. I wonder, right? I wonder, like, what the raw materials Mike and I had talked about, and this is interesting. Your insight, Easy. We talked about research chemicals and that whole dark underworld.
Basically, a loophole to get around, the laws. Right? You could basically order anything. The problem with that stuff is that stuff's not regulated. So, like, that's kind of like my beef with, like, when I hear kids talking about, like, SARMs and stuff. It's not – I don't know a lot about SARMs themselves, but they can't be really regulated. So just from a basic sanitary standpoint, when you're making a capsule, when you make capsules of Dream, it's made in a real deal facility. It's, all inspected and clean. You don't know where the stuff's being made because nobody's overseeing it. So just from a basic hygiene standpoint, that stuff, I have an issue with that stuff.
For sure.
You and I, because we're in the industry, like, we're a little bit more skeptical about things than most people.
Sure. And that was the other thing, Easy, too, right? Like, I was sitting there and have you ever wandered onto the research chemical sites, Easy, in terms of, not for you personally, of course, but for your lab rats? Have you ever found your way on there for experimental purposes only?
I never ordered anything, but I do remember looking at them back in the day. It's been a long time, but
remember the buzz about peptides at one point, right?
Peptides are big now.
Yeah, they're on the chemical
huge now.
Yeah, and it's funny too, right? Because it's like, it's funny, right? Because like your individual choices, right? Easy, like being a natural athlete, right, or a drug-free athlete, and whatever value that has for an individual personally. You could easily like buy peptides or buy SARMs and not even realize like that you were doing anything that was counter to your goals or identity as an athlete who chose to not, use traditional performance enhancement drugs.
Well, rumor has it that back in the day, hot stuff was spiked with some real things. And I did drink hot stuff, so maybe I'm not natural.
You're not natural.
Well, metrics, right? There was always the rumor that the original metrics had who knows what in it, that it was spiked with something too, and that the guys from back then would say, "Oh man, like nothing's ever been as effective as the first metrics." And talk about it. That's a great way to gain buzz for your product. Mike talked about it with Jack 3D, right? And like a pre-workout that launches itself with a formula that's incredibly intense and has some gray market stuff, and everybody uses like, whoa, this stuff's amazing. Right. And then once the brand grows to a level where there's going to be scrutiny, they change up the formula, they get rid of the illicit stuff, and now they're above board, right?
Yeah. There were several products like that over the years. Some of them were like, sexual performance products that had real Viagra in them. And
sure.
I remember a couple of companies getting busted for that.
Sure.
A lot of it was the owner's faults because even, the products were getting huge and they were making a ton of money. And then they started to flaunt that money, and that's when the feds came after them.
Common in our industry.
I know,
right?
but it's
We've seen that recently,
we're all sitting there watching these guys like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Right.
They can't help themselves.
Nope.
Right. And it's like, it's trying to build an empire on products that are deceptive, right? And it's like, that's the thing, man. Like, I don't wish, I'm just the type too empathetic to ever wish a negative outcome on anybody, right? But it's like, if you're making products and you're not being honest about what's in them, you're undermining your relationship to the consumer, and all of a sudden it's not an honest dialogue anymore, and then if it's like you're doing that and now you've got a fleet of Rolls Royces because of it too, that or private jet or whatever, that makes it even worse, you know what I mean? So it's like, and it's like, and there's different because, they used to talk about the supplement industry like the Wild West, and like, I think that there's gray area there too, right? Where there might have been people who were pushing the envelope, but they were pushing the envelope in the name of like body sovereignty, and that athletes should be able to use whatever they want to use, and here's what's in it, and we're going to make products that have this ingredient or that ingredient in it, and F the system, we don't care, because dedicated athletes should have, and consenting adults should have access to this stuff if they want it, and that's sort of a different thing too, because at least in that situation you kind of know the character of the person you're dealing with, and they're not trying to sneak the stuff into the product. They're being open with you about we're making these products because you have a right to use them.
Yeah. No, that's a huge pet peeve of mine. Anybody that deceives a consumer for a quick buck is a huge pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
And those people, and I'm not going to name any names, but there are people in the industry. We know the names that have happened even recently, and those I have nothing for those people. Like, it just bothers the hell out of me. You can make enough money, honestly. Like,
it's a very big pie, right, man? It's a very big pie. You could, I'm just trying to get a little tiny slice of that very big pie, but it's a multi-billion-dollar pie. We could all act like gentlemen and be above board in the way you're making your products and still eat. You would hope,
Yeah. And what is like? I know those people don't have a real conscience, but if you got all that stuff and you got the fancy cars in the house by cheating people and deceiving people, have you really earned that? You really haven't.
Of course
you might have it. You might have the Lambo, but you didn't really earn it. Not in my eyes, at least.
Of course not. And whether they care or not is a different story, right?
They probably don't on some level. They probably, they detach from it. They're just looking out for themselves.
They're sociopaths.
That's a good one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. It's unfortunate to think of it that way, but for sure. And that's one of the things, right? That like as at times giving our industry a bad name, and it's like, try to go the opposite, try to carry yourself and do the opposite of that kind of stuff, and hope that you can stand apart from being a good guy.
Yeah, it hurts everybody because people will bring up that example or one of those examples whenever you have a discussion about supplements. And that's
amino spiking, right? That was a big one.
I mean, that was like going on for a while, and like everybody was doing it. Not everybody, but a lot of companies were doing it.
Yeah.
It's like one company started and other companies just copied, as that happens a lot in our industry anyway.
For sure.
Yeah. Arnold got caught up in that. Remember?
Right? He was on the Muscle Farm one with his own stuff.
I think that was the end of it. That's what killed it or helped kill it.
Yeah. I heard it actually that even that stuff didn't sell that well with his name on it anyway, which is surprising, right?
Mm-hmm. Has there been a supplement that did well that had a celebrity attached to it?
Good question.
Twin Lab did I think it was Twin Lab had the Ray Lewis one.
Yeah, most of them don't. And when you see like a bodybuilder come out and it's like his personal line, those almost never do well. If
Ray Lewis's biggest contribution to the supplement subculture was getting busted for PEDs and blaming deer velvet antler spray, and like
everybody wanted it, right?
reason that bucked up is a big company now dates back to that.
It's wild that that's like how they started their company and now that's so big.
For sure.
I got hit for an ad recently for like it was posing itself as like a hormone clinic. And then when you looked into the product, and this was a $200 a month product, it was deer antler velvet.
Oh,
like
what? Pennies to make.
Yeah.
Gosh. There is one brand that has done well with a person's name, Ronnie Coleman, at least internationally. I know
internationally,
that brand is really
I think Jay Cutler does well too.
Yeah, but is his brand his name?
I think it's his brand. Yeah,
I
think so.
I thought he had a different name for the brand, but you might be right.
Labrada.
Yeah.
Labrada, Gaspari.
That's true. Labrada's done really well.
But like those guys are celebrities, but they're celebrities within our subculture.
Yeah.
They're not like, to some degree, obviously, Ronnie and Jay have like more broad-based mainstream, I think largely because of social media now, right? Have more like cachet as celebrities, but they're still Mr. Olympias and whatnot. So they're still from our subculture, from our world. But no, I know what you mean. Like if you, I don't know, pick your jacked movie star. If he came out with a product now, would anybody give a shit? You know what I mean? Would that make
I think they'd get a small bump, at the beginning, and then does it have lasting? Who knows?
Right.
Like The Rock with Zoa. Is that? I mean, I don't see that many places.
I think the problem with that was really that it didn't taste good. At least the first version of it did not taste very good.
Right.
And if you got an energy drink and it doesn't taste good, you're in trouble, man.
Yeah.
I think they did reformulate. I haven't tried any of the new ones. Same thing with Jocko's. And I used to see both of those used to be in Wawa, and I don't see them anymore.
That's interesting. Because you're right. I do remember seeing those in Wawa anymore, and I never thought to see if they're still there or I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, I just saw my local Wawa got Ghost. They've had Monster the whole time. They've had C4, but they just brought in Ghost.
Wow.
Which I happen to like. Ghost is not my favorite brand, but I like their energy drink a lot.
Yeah, no, for sure. They taste really good. And I said this in a prior episode too. Like, the licensing stuff that they've done is impressive at the very least, right? Because you look at the brand recognition stuff and it's like you say Chips Ahoy and you got me, and it's like, and then like the protein didn't really actually taste like Chips Ahoy at all.
Yeah, I had another.
I couldn't help but try one. Anybody really knows me knows that like I try to have principles and try not to like buy competitor products, but at the same time, like I draw all kinds of weird lines.
You should though. You should be testing other people's.
I draw all kind of weird lines anyway too, and I'm like, oh well, this is an energy drink. We don't make energy drinks, so it doesn't really count.
Right.
I'm lying myself, but yeah, but the licensing that they've pulled off has been really impressive.
The thing they're doing now with the cereal is very interesting. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm. I did.
So everything they've done so far is they have licensed like a flavor from Chips Ahoy. This is kind of reverse. General Mills is licensing the Ghost name, and General Mills is distributing the cereal in some mass market stuff.
No kidding. See, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. That's crazy. And I wonder about Ghost's ability to control what actually goes into the product if it's being made by like a big mainstream cereal company.
I don't know who's making. I don't know if General Mills is actually producing it. I assume they are, but I don't know that.
Right. Well, yeah, it's
because I'm sure that's different, completely different manufacturing than capsules, pills, and powders.
For sure. I've seen. A lot of those products are becoming more and more prominent, whether it be like Magic Spoon or whatever, right? Where it's like a high protein,
I tried the Magic Spoon.
Cereal. But not cheap, man. Like
no, I was gonna say, like I'd be all over the Ghost one, but I'm not paying $20 a box.
Yeah, they're like $8 to $10 a box. I think Magic Spoon. I don't know if they still do, but they used to force you to buy 4 boxes at once. You couldn't buy a single box.
Yeah.
So you're $40 in, which
is a lot for cereal. It's a lot.
And there's like 8 servings in the freaking box.
Right. And that's
if you stick to the serving size.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, 8 normal human servings, but that's probably like a bowl.
Yeah. But there's definitely a market for a better for you or healthier version of cereal.
For sure there is. Because I'm a cereal enthusiast, and for sure, like because you sit there and you have your conversation you have the conversation with yourself that like, oh, eating this 5 cups of cereal is somehow right is less like junk food than if I just had a box of cookies. Yeah. But
it's the same.
Probably the same.
Yeah.
Probably the same. So yeah, there's certainly a place for that healthier cereal alternative for sure, and it makes sense because cereal, when you think of cereals that taste good, you think of being a kid, you think of youth, you think of a lot of those nostalgic buttons, so it suits their branding.
Sitting in front of the TV on a Saturday morning as a kid with a sugary bowl of cereal and not a fucking care in the world, man,
living the dream.
Yeah,
really
living the dream.
You watch cartoons or wrestling, whatever, just not a worry. Like on a Saturday morning, you don't have anything to think about, like, right?
Nothing better than that.
Then when you adult, you got all these fucking things to think about.
You ain't lying. You ain't lying. So I'll still hold on to those little things from youth. I'll still have my cereal because you're not going to take it away from me. It might be at 10:30 at night, but not in front of the cartoons. But you know how it goes.
Yeah, love it.
So one of the reasons I know Mike wanted to talk to you about it, right, is that you are the owner and proprietor of your own brand.
Yes, sir.
And but your brand is a unique one. Talk to us about Paw Power Nutrition and all that has gone into it to this day.
Yeah, so we're July 4th will be 3 years in business.
Congratulations! Congratulations! Every day is an accomplishment.
Every day is a grind.
Yes, yes, it is.
So it was back after I left Animal. I went to go work for 2 other supplement companies, and neither was the right fit, and they didn't work out. And I wanted to a couple of things. One, I wanted to kind of control my own destiny, right? I didn't want to work for somebody else and be in somebody else's hands, and my destiny's in their hands. 2, I had a lot of knowledge from, the industry, from CPG products. And 3, my wife and myself have a tremendous passion for dogs. We have 4 of our own. My wife's done a ton of volunteer work at rescues. So we have a tremendous passion. And, it would have been natural for me to maybe start my own supplement, human supplement company, right? That's kind of the natural thing. But, there's so many brands out there and it's not easy to stand out. And I really wanted my wife to be involved as well. And she wouldn't have been so really into the human supplement stuff. So said, what if we could do supplements for dogs? And we're not the only one doing it, but it's a fairly new category, right? It's an emerging category. And people are really in tune nowadays with dogs' health and dog nutrition more than ever. And I wanted to do something unique. And I really just wanted to do straight up supplements, right? The peanut butter wasn't even, dog butter is our main product, right? That wasn't even on my radar screen. But it was during COVID. There were supply issues. It was tough, in the supplement game to get source ingredients.
For sure.
These companies, these manufacturing companies, one, I'm very picky about what company I wanted to use. And 2, they want these huge minimums. So I was struggling. I wasn't working at the time. And a friend of mine said he knew a guy that made dog peanut butter. He's like, you should just talk to him. He makes it. I'm like, I don't really want to do peanut butter for dogs. He's like, just have a conversation with him. So I was open-minded. I went to have a conversation. And when we talked and he said that he could do supplements in the peanut butter, that interested me.
Sure.
So now it's something I know that is, again, we're not the only one, but there's only a couple of companies that do it. We have something that's different and unique, right? So the idea behind dog butter is that it's a dog safe version. So when you purchase it as a dog owner, there's nothing in there that is bad for your dog. They put a lot of stuff in human peanut butter that's for human taste, for long shelf life, so that you don't have to stir it. So like in your typical Jif, Skippy, hydrogenated oil, salt, sugar, palm oil, molasses. That's not going to kill your dog, but it's not great for their digestion.
Not ideal.
And they don't need that extra sweetness and all that stuff. They don't need the extra sodium, especially if they're eating kibble. Number 2, some fitness peanut butters have xylitol in it, right? It allows you to have a sweeter product with a lower carb content. That is toxic to dogs, and that could kill your dog in the right amount. It's also in toothpaste and gum. So if you have dogs, just keep that stuff out of the way of dogs. So you're getting a dog safe product when you pick ours up, right? It's specifically formulated for dogs, nothing extra. The base of it is just non-GMO, unsalted peanuts. To me, the unique thing was adding the supplements in. So we have one that has a fully dosed hip and joint supplement. We put in glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, and turmeric. And we also added cranberries, which is good for the urinary tract. So now you're getting a fully dosed, and we're transparent with it and the dose, supplement in the peanut butter. So you don't have to give an extra pill. You don't have to give an extra powder. You don't have to force it down their throat, right? They love peanut butter. They take it very easily.
Yeah.
We have another one that has pre and probiotics, 6 strains, and blueberries. And then one of our most popular ones has pumpkin in it. Pumpkin's very good for dogs' digestion. It can cure constipation and diarrhea. So we originally started out with just 2 flavors, original and pumpkin. I had the thing that really helped me was the manufacturer took a chance on me and he gave me a very low minimum to start. And that really helped me because I wasn't working at the time and we didn't have a lot of money to spend. Christine's freaking out, so we just spent a little. We bought the first batch. It was all organic marketing at the beginning, sold that batch. We used that money to buy the second batch and so on and so forth. And we bootstrapped this whole thing. We haven't taken a dime from the company yet. We keep reinvesting it. I'm not going to put anybody under any delusions. We're not killing it. We're doing much better than we did last year. We almost doubled our sales. It's still not big numbers, like
awesome.
Grand scheme of
awesome.
things.
No, dude, I get it. Of course.
It's not paying the bills. Me and Christine, I did take on a full-time job, and so did she. So we're still grinding away. Just keep putting stuff into it. We did launch 2 standalone supplements. I launched a liquid fish oil food topper they add to their food, human grade, and another food topper that's good for their immune system. It's mushroom extracts. And you guys are going to hear a lot more about mushrooms with dogs. There's a lot of really cool research with mushrooms with people, but there's some really cool stuff with dogs and their immune system. Even some research with certain types of dog cancer that it helps with them. It's not a cancer cure, but it could help with that.
Have you experimented with the mushrooms yourself? Have you utilized any of it yourself or incorporated anything into your
as a human?
Personal, as a human?
Yeah, I started getting into it. I've been drinking a mushroom coffee for a while.
Okay.
It's got chaga and lion's mane in it.
Awesome.
And I really feel the effects, so I liked it. So yeah, nice. I was bought in on the mushrooms. Yeah.
Nice.
And what we do is, so Christine is a certified dog trainer also. I went ahead and got my certification in canine nutrition. And we try and provide value to our customers, not just sell them a product. We try and give them information too, right?
Educate.
Here's what's good for your dog to eat. Christine will give them some dog training tips. And we have a little bit of a community. We got a private Facebook group where we, interact with our consumers and stuff. And it's cool. We're getting some repeat business. We've won a few awards for dog butter, which is kind of cool because we don't have a big marketing budget to get our name out there. Now we're doing some advertising now that we've made some money, but we just reinvested into advertising now, we have, but it's still on a really small scale.
Sure.
Where do you have distribution? Is it all direct to consumer?
Right now it's 95% direct to consumer. I'm in maybe 10 or 15 mom and pop stores in New York and New Jersey. And my best store that I'm in, this is wild, right? Not a pet store. I'm in mostly pet stores. I'm in a couple of human supplement stores where we do okay. But my best retail customer is Christian Coronado.
I knew you were going to say that.
He sells a lot of it, man.
Yeah, sure.
It's crazy. He does meal prep, Mike. And in his place, he puts our stuff on the shelf and he sells a lot of it. I do really well. If I've done, we do a lot of guerrilla marketing. I go to events as much as I can every weekend. If I can book an event, I'm there. I'm going to be at Signature Fitness tomorrow. Victor Martinez is having a Fit for Autism event. You've seen me at Attila's gym. If there's an event and I'm available to go, I'm going to it. And a big part of our brand and why consumers like us is that we donate back to dog rescues every single month. That's a big part of our mission. We give them money, we give them products, and we try and use our platform to promote those rescues too, in hopes that other people either rescue a dog or volunteer or donate money as well.
You're doing God's work, brother. I feel like, if I can be honest, man, I look at what you do and I think to myself, oh, it's just a matter of time. I feel like that's just, I know, as my grandmother would say, right, your lips to God's ears, but I see the quality of what you do. I see the passion in it. And then just looking at it only analytically and removing the fact of how highly I think about you, I think to myself, oh man, there is such a place for that and such a demand for it. And I would say having that product in front of consumers at like Christian's restaurant is a perfect illustration of it, like of people seeing that thing once they're aware of it now, realizing how they're, you know, probably the entity that they care the most about in the world, maybe next to their children, could benefit from it, and they're all in. Like, it's a no-brainer, man. You know, and so like I feel like once enough people know about it, it's just a matter of time.
That's it. That's our big thing, is brand awareness.
Yeah.
And I do not say this to brag, but it's very cool. It's a fairly easy sale. And on our website, and we've been doing this for 3 years consistently, we have a very, very high conversion rate. Awesome. Like, you can, I don't know what your conversion rate is on G-Code, but I know what it was for NutriBio and GAD. I know what their conversion rates are. I even know my manufacturer makes the peanut butter for me. He has his own brand. Right. He's huge on Amazon. He crushes it on Amazon. Yeah. He's not a strong direct to consumer. I know his conversion rate. Mine is like 3 times that amount. Wow. We're at like a hair under like 8% for 3 years straight. That's a big conversion rate. Yeah. Like the average in the supplement world was like 2.5%.
For sure.
So it's not a tough sale. If I can get them to my website, you know, or get in front of them, like when I do these events, it's not like you have to really convince people like, oh, wow, that's a cool idea. That makes sense, you know?
Well, that's the thing too, right? It's a combination of factors, right? It's that the product is good and different and unique. And then also, and it serves a purpose, right? It addresses a need. It's something that's emotionally close to the consumer's heart, right? But then at the same time also, what you've done is broken down a lot of the infrastructure that separates the consumer from the people behind the brand, right? Like, so you're saying like once you're in front of them, they get to talk to you, they see how passionate you are, you see how well you know it, see how well intentioned you are, and that you're the guy behind the product, and they know that they want this product anyway. So if you were a villain, they'd probably still buy it, but then they see what a good guy you are and how, you know, like I said, well intentioned you are, and I think that just makes it a no-brainer kind of sell, man. So it's like it's just a matter of being able to take that message more and more to the masses, man. But that's the thing, man. Like, it's what we struggle with to this day too, right? Is that like we're in this hyper competitive industry, and you know, I've said this many times, you know, that's one of like my great struggles, right? Is that like you could build the best brand in the tree. It's a tree falls in the woods, right? You could build the best brand in the world, and if nobody knows it exists, then you know what difference does it make how great the brand is, right? 100%. And so I struggle with that all the time. Like how do you just reach more people, right? And like one of the places that you find yourself in, right, is like I heard it like used as an analogy for wrestling, right? Where like the difference between pro wrestling, like when we were kids or in the 90s versus now, is similar to probably where we find ourselves, right? Where it's like you're straining between these two goals. Do you want to reach more people or just extract more from the people who you already have, right? Yeah. And it's like, and when I say extract, I don't mean money out of their pocket. Yeah. I mean their attention, their you know, regard, and then where they, you know, because the ultimate truth too is this, and I know you appreciate this, right? Is like I'll always say, like, it's a huge deal to me when somebody makes a purchase of one of our products, because I realize what that means, that they had an opportunity to purchase a pre-workout or whatever from any company in the world, right? And they're taking their hard-earned consumer dollar and they're essentially voting for yours. And like, that's a huge deal, right? And it's like, how do you get more of those people, right? As opposed to just expecting more from the people that you already have, you know? And that's like one of the great tensions.
Yeah, you need a balance of both, right? Take care of your existing customers, and then you got to bring in some new stuff too. But yeah, think about that. If you're a customer looking for a pre-workout, you just Google pre-workout. Oh. How many fucking brands come up? They all got shiny labels. They all sound great, right? Yep. How do you make that decision? Like, we're in it. We kind of like, we know, us three here, we know the differences in like formulas and brand. But if you're a new consumer, you're an 18-year-old kid in New York, and you're just starting out and you're going to buy your first who do you know who to trust? What, you know, of course, not easy. It's like it's like I always say, like, it's the paradox of choice. Sometimes you don't want to offer too many choices. As a brand, yourself.
Sure.
A consumer that goes into Home Depot and wants to buy a chrome bathroom faucet. You go and look at that wall and everything looks the same. There's 50 faucets. How the fuck do you choose?
Sure.
And sometimes people don't make any choice because they get frustrated and they walk out.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would caution, like, we specifically stuck to right now 4 flavors of dog butter. My manufacturer can do 15, 20 different flavors, but I don't want to have too many choices because I think that is a problem for people. They can't make a decision.
Have you tried to go on Shark Tank?
I have a Shark Tank story.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if I guess I could tell it. We had to sign some paperwork that really couldn't really talk about stuff.
Okay.
But I will give a brief. I'll give you guys. And this is the first time I'm talking about it publicly. We did apply for Shark Tank last year. Okay. We got very far in the process. Paperwork. We were on Zooms with the producers. They gave us dates to hold. They said, well, you might get called, so hold these dates. Ultimately, they said you didn't make the cut. You can try again next year. Okay. So, it's a roller coaster, emotional roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
You get that close and you think you might have a chance. So you start dreaming like, what it could be like. And that could be life-changing. One appearance on that show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they aired this season, at the first few episodes, I didn't watch. And I was like, I'm not going to watch. I was a little sour about it, right?
Of course.
So I saw an ad on Facebook and it said, this Friday on Shark Tank, there's going to be a New Jersey family on. So I watched a little video teaser and I'm like, fuck it, I'll just watch the episode. We'll see. They're from Jersey. I watched the episode and they get to the very end and they're showing the preview for the next week. And
the next week is a comparable product.
Motherfucking Jay Cutler is standing up there with Jay's Pet Butter.
Oh.
Now, I knew he had it, and he came out with it after I did. But little did I know he's applying on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
I'm fucking cursing up a storm. My wife comes running out of the room. What happened? And I said, this is why we didn't get picked for Shark Tank. They picked Jay instead of us. And I'm even more mad because I'm not mad at Jay, but I'm more mad that like the show is supposed to be about the little people and giving somebody a shot. And Jay's net worth is $30 million and doesn't need Shark Tank.
No,
sure.
And if you watch it, I don't know if you guys did. You can go back and watch a replay. He didn't get a deal. They all turned him down except Mr. Wonderful, and Mr. Wonderful made him an offer, but he turned it down right away. And just this is my gut feeling. And I did watch Jay Cutler's podcast after. They just really went on for the exposure. He has a business partner. And I think Jay's kind of like just the face of it. And he doesn't even seem that interested in it. He doesn't promote it that much.
Man, I didn't even know that existed. I didn't even know that existed.
That was our shot. Like we would have got picked if it wasn't.
Wow.
And it is what it is. It's life. It happens. It sucks.
It makes me dislike that whole genre of television shows even more.
I get it. Look, Jay's better for ratings. He's more interesting than Eric and Christine from New Jersey.
I mean, in some ways, yes, but in some ways, no, right? Because his story's not as authentic as yours would be, right? It's not as real. It's not as passionate.
And but supposedly, they look down on people that just want to go on for the exposure. And Jay and his business partner admitted they did that on their podcast afterwards.
Wow. Well, the thing that blows my mind too, right, is like the fact that people. The other thing though is that like it'll be better when you guys do it without Shark Tank. Because it's funny because people will be like, get a sense of, because I don't really necessarily like always openly talk about like what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do, what G code is, right? Until somebody asks me, and it's usually like out of context, it'll be like one of the girls' parents or kids I coach their parents or something, right? And like a lot of times people are genuinely supportive and genuinely want to have your back, but they'll be like, they get the sense that he's an entrepreneur and he's in this hyper competitive space and he's trying to climb this mountain every day, right? Like, hey, you should just go on Shark Tank. I'm like, thanks, I'm on it. Thanks, I appreciate that insight. It's very helpful. I'll ring that up real quick and I'll be on next week. Thanks.
There's something crazy.
I'll go on Shark Tank.
I think they said something like 14,000 companies apply every year. So just to, I guess, get that far was a good sign that our stuff's at least interesting, right? Yeah. The process that you go through is insane, dude. Me and Christine had to fill out individual applications that were 15 pages each.
Wow.
The business application is 70 pages.
Wow.
And then they make you sign these legal documents where your head is spinning.
Yeah,
we did have a lawyer look at it, but basically, and basically they can, and we signed it. They could take your idea, and they can run with it. They can call it whatever they want, But our idea is not.
It doesn't surprise me. That does not surprise me at all that that's possible, and that sucks.
Yeah, you sign it all the way. That right,
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and my comment wasn't like just go on, Shark Tank. This is such an innovative product, and I think
I didn't think we'd ever get the call. I just applied online, and like 6 months later, I get a random phone call from California, and I almost never pick up calls that numbers I don't know.
Sure.
But it interested me that it was California, so I picked it up. It was on like a 5 o'clock on a Friday, and it was a girl. She's like, "I'm from NBC Shark Tank." I'm like, "Come on, you're pulling me over, right?"
Wow.
So we had to do a whole pitch, a video pitch, a whole thing,
what's funny too is that Mike saying like, "Oh, he didn't mean it." Like, no, Eric's Shark Tank and me with Shark Tank is almost like two completely different things because like, I feel like if I was producing a TV show, you guys' product and your story and how you present it seems perfect for that.
Yeah,
like that format. Just because of how you guys speak and how authentic and real it all is, and how it's very much like a built from the ground up company. And then obviously, dog food, pet food is a big space, but the little specific niche that you guys fit is such like a cool one, and it comes from such a good place. And then like not to be that guy, but if I'm looking at it as a TV producer, it's like, oh, all right, the opportunity we could have lots of cute dogs on TV with them, and it's an easy sale. It's something that everybody will watch and love, and like I would think people would want to rally behind you guys. You know what I mean? So the fact that they opted for the celebrity in that instance, and we're and presenting something that's far less like sort of real and authentic. It's surprising.
Yeah. I'd be lying if I I'm human. I'm a little bitter about it.
Sure.
But I'm not spending time on it. Like I got bigger fish to fry, and I'm over it now. When I watched it, when I watched the premiere, I was actually away that weekend in Baltimore doing a pet expo, and I'm in a hotel by myself watching Jay on TV. Like that could have been my moment. But it is what it is. We move on.
Great. Yeah, of course. We're glad you guys will get there. You guys are going to get there without it.
Yeah, we will.
Crazy.
It'll be a longer road, whatever, but we will.
No doubt.
Yeah. And look, we enjoy it. Like if it never becomes anything huge and it makes a couple of bucks, we still love it. We're passionate about it,
For sure.
So we're still going to do it.
For sure. That's the thing, man. It's like you love this stuff, on that elemental level that's got nothing to do with finances and stuff. Do you really care and love this stuff? And if so, I think over time that'll separate you, So that's awesome, man. It's inspiring. Very inspiring.
And that's like the beauty of I don't want to say capitalism, but small business, right? You guys both of your companies are, you want to make money on them, but you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
You're putting everything you have into it. Like, this isn't, you don't run a hedge fund where you're just trying to make money off of money, or screw people over.
There's a lot of different ways you can make money in this world, right? This is a harder road, G&I and these small companies go through. But like you said, it's something we love and we're passionate. And I truly believe that comes through at some point to the consumer.
It does, man. It does, for sure. For sure. And that's the thing too, right? Like when we talk about like that tree falls in the wood scenario, it's also the thought that, like you were just saying, when people get in front of you, right? Like, and that's why trade shows or opportunities to do demos and whatnot are important, because you're able to make that personal connection. And that's one way that you differentiate yourself from everybody else. So like, oh, people believe in you, right? And people now see your brand through a different lens because they get to know you and like how valuable that can be,
Right.
You guys should do a collab.
Never know.
G-Code peanut butter.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Put a G-Code.
I'm open to it. I'm open to it.
Put a G-Code.
I've known Easy for a long time.
Yeah. We probably could cook up something.
I'm sure at some point in our life we're gonna collaborate on something.
Yeah. That would be cool.
It would be very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's
Mike, what else you got, man? Mike's like the actual producer of this show.
Okay.
So like,
what do you guys want to talk about? We're at like an hour
heavy.
15. I don't want to take up too much of Eric's
Talk
time.
about your training, Easy. Talk about your training. How's your training right now? What are you up to? What do you do?
I love training. Absolutely love it. I've now switched to training early in the morning, which I used to never do.
Yeah.
I got used to it. It took me a little while to get used to it, but I enjoy it, and it's done. And just because I'm so busy, and I'm not a late night guy. I go to bed early. You know me.
Sure.
So I started training early in the morning, but I'm training consistently 5 to 6 days a week. Kind of like a hybrid bodybuilding style. I still do the big 3: squat, bench, and deadlift, like powerlifting style reps and sets. But then all the accessory stuff is bodybuilding reps and sets. I have a shoulder day. I have an arm day. Typical like kind of bro split.
I know that's what they call it, a bro split.
Yeah,
like, dude, I'm a lifelong bro splitter.
Yeah, I love it. I love training, man. It's just I still have a passion for it. I get up every day and still have a passion to go to the gym.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I may at some point get back to doing a powerlifting competition, and in fact,
I
aspire to. It's just I've been just so busy, but I definitely aspire to get back to that at some point.
I'll give a little insight. The past, I don't know, maybe 8 weeks or so, I've gone out of my way to try to incorporate. Because here's the thing, I pretty much squat every week, and I've squatted every week for years and years and years and years and years.
Nice.
And I'm notorious for bench pressing, but your shoulders take a beating on the bench. You know that.
I still do Benchapalooza every Friday, taught to me by G Diesel. Big Friday. It's tradition.
I will have a lasting legacy, and that might be it. Training chest on Fridays.
Yeah.
But it's like I've been getting in a groove where I've been making myself do deadlifts as well on back day. I've been squatting, and then I've been actually flat benching, and kind of prioritizing the big 3 power lifts. And it hurts, right? Like when you start, it's funny. There's a lot of mileage on your joints. You know what I mean? And like I've been doing like training as consistently and strictly as I ever have, and with intensity and all that stuff, but not in low rep ranges for the past several years. So like to try to start like pushing yourself a little bit to go heavier, right? And like using anything that's north of like 3 plates.
Yeah,
it feels like a lot. It feels a lot heavier than it once did.
Yeah, I haven't gone.
It's not that I'm not as strong or muscular or whatever as I ever was, but man, it just feels different.
I have not tried a true like powerlifting single in years now, maybe 2 years. And now I'm just being a lot smarter. If something feels off, even a little bit, while I'm warming up or doing sets, I call it. I'll move on to another exercise or just move on to another day. Whereas in the past, I would just fuck it, I'm going to push through, and then I got a strain that I'm dealing with for 6 weeks, which sucks.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to be smarter about it.
It's an evolved, mature human being. Yeah. What they would do.
Yeah. I guess that comes with old age.
I respect that. Don't say old age.
I don't feel old, but
no ageism here. You don't look old either, my friend. So keep doing whatever you're doing, man.
Thank you.
You ever have that thought on like a heavy bench press, and like it just pops in your mind, and you're thinking, I could die right now, and nobody's gonna find me.
I never thought about death. I've thought about my pec could tear, but I've never thought about that.
Yeah. What's funny is that I talk about like a period of my life for like 10 years where like I reached a certain level with benching, and then like I said like probably like 45 weeks a year out of a year for 10 years. I bench like exceptionally heavy, right? And I think back and I think about like your shoulders, and like how the shoulder is like an intricate and sort of delicate joint, and how like they're not meant to do that.
No.
So like when I feel it now, it's like, well, no wonder you meathead. No wonder you feel it now.
Mike, I used to put the pressure on G when we trained Big Friday at Universal. I'd be like, this is not going to be a good weekend if you don't hit 405 today. This is not going to be a good weekend. And I know that would pressure him.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, so the quality of your weekend hinges on how much I bench today. That's
right.
How this is going to work. I have to set the tone for the weekend now.
Yep.
Based on my own performance here. But no, there's no pressure. There's no pressure. That's cool, though. It worked, though. His mind games pushed me.
That was fun. That was fun. Are you training now?
So I did my cardio and stuff today, but I haven't trained yet. When I do, and my shoulders hurt, I'll blame you for that.
Thank you. Yeah. Are you training exclusively at home now, G? I know you built a home gym.
Yeah, I mean, I train in my basement. I would say 95% of the time. Like if there's instances where I'm on the road for whatever for work, and I find myself near a friendly gym or a cool gym, then I'll go out of my way to like plan it and be like, all right, well, I'll go train there. Or if it's an instance where I'm away from home for a day or where obviously I'm going to train somewhere else.
Right.
But yeah, most of my if I'm home, then I train at home. Yeah, so the vast majority of my workouts are at home.
I know G Diesel does not miss training sessions because we've traveled all over the world, and there are times we were so fucking tired, but G's like, we gotta eat, we gotta go to the gym, and then we gotta eat again.
It's a lifestyle.
True, man. It's true. It's true, man. I don't know. I don't know why, but it's always been the routine, man. That's why you were a good running mate. You're a good running mate, a good dude to travel with.
You took one for me once. I remember we were in England for Body Power, and you had already the year prior gone there, and you went to Temple Gym.
Yeah.
And I had never gotten to go. And we got in, I think it was real late. We were real fucking tired. And it wasn't close to where we stayed, right? No. Remember, we had to take a cab. It was pretty far to get there. And I asked you if you would go and suck it up. We were tired, but and you said, fuck it, let's go. And we went, man. And I appreciate that.
Bro, like, and looking back, right? Like, you imagine if I had punked out there? Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
One, completely undermined my reputation. But then two, right? The thought of Temple Gym, the real Temple Gym doesn't exist anymore. And there was an opportunity to go.
Right.
Where Dorian trained, where Dorian built his Olympia physique, legendary place. But the funny thing is, and now that you say it, I remember, right? Like, I feel like we didn't sleep. Like,
no,
I feel like
when we were in that, I think we were falling asleep in that cab on the way there.
Yeah, like we were literally on fumes. Like somehow the window, or like we had to get there and set up the booth.
Right. I think we had to do that all day.
Right. Like it was this is just generally framing this thing, but like we were flying out from the US on a Wednesday, and then Thursday we had to set up the booth, and then the event started on Friday. So we had to land in the UK at some point, find an opportunity to set up the booth.
Yep.
But then also get our workout in, and the thing was, right, like in my head I could easily justify like, all right, we'll just work out at the hotel because of circumstances. But Easy's like, I've never been to Temple, we gotta go to Temple, and I was like, all right, let's go. But yeah, it's awesome. I'm glad we did.
I appreciate that, man.
Of course, man. Of course.
How far away was that from where you guys were staying?
It was in Birmingham, but it was like a 15-20 minute cab ride.
Right. So like we were like we were on like the outskirts where we were staying, and then the gym was like in the downtown area, and like Birmingham's kind of like Pittsburgh or something like that. So like,
it looks like
20 minutes out, 20 minutes out in the suburbs of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And then like you have to pick a cab or do whatever the hell you have to do to get to the downtown area, and that's what we.
And then walk down that alley.
City center.
Yeah, walk down this dark alley, and you're in the back alley. That's where the door was. It's like look kind of shady.
Yeah, and everybody there, right? It's like people talk about how intimidated they were by the place. Like everybody there was always so cool to us.
Very cool.
like
Everybody in England, all the British people were great, man.
Amazing! Some of my favorite people in the world. To this day, Simon Fan, who ended up opening up his own gym, Ultimate Fitness in Birmingham. He was like the manager. At Temple when we went there, and he was like super cool to us then, and like he's still my buddy to this day. Like he travels the world. He's like somehow involved in like bodybuilding media or something to some extent, but he's at all the shows even though he still lives in the UK, and like he'll come see me and stuff to this day. And like he was the manager at Temple back then. Like those guys were so nice to us. They were so cool,
Yeah.
So,
isn't it wild that you didn't want to do this thing and you went and did it? Went to the gym, and now you have such a fond memory.
That's like a life. That's a life lesson right there, right? Like every time you have the impulse, like, and I try to tell myself this, and I'm not perfect. I don't live up to it all the time, right? But like when you have that impulse, like, man, this is the last thing I want to do in the world right now, right? But you, in the back of your mind, you know it's the thing that you should do. You have to do it. Right. And if you don't do it, you usually end up regretting it. Right. And like if we look back and Easy's story was like, I never got to go to Temple because pussied out.
Especially that it's no longer there. Right?
I'm glad I was a little bit tired and we went and did it as opposed to the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You sleep when you're dead, right? Easy. Wasn't that what you said?
I used to joke around like that. Meanwhile, I'm asleep by 9 o'clock, but yeah.
Yeah.
I do get up very early. So.
Yeah. What time do you get up?
And this is just natural how my body works. No alarm clock. I'll be falling asleep at 9 o'clock, and then I'm up at 4:35 a.m. without an alarm clock.
Yeah.
And I'm very much a morning person. I'm ready to roll. But you catch me at 8:30 at night, I'm tired.
Not for much.
Yeah.
And how far is the gym from where you're
at? There's one that I can walk to.
Okay.
That I go to. I drive most days, but it's 0.7 miles. So I can walk there if I want to. And I've done it when the weather's nice. Yeah.
Where in Jersey are you?
I'm in Hazlitt.
Okay.
So super lucky. Within 5 miles is probably 4 great gyms.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So very lucky. Plus, I built a little gym in my basement during COVID. Just a squat rack, a bench, and a small little like deadlift platform. But I don't use it much now. I like going to the gym. Just because
for sure. The environment and the ritual of going to the gym is a big thing. So I get that.
I'm 6 minutes from Fitness City.
Legendary.
Another gym, real gym over here is the Powerhouse I can walk to. Paramount Gym. Yeah, we're just very, very lucky in New Jersey to have so many good gyms.
A Powerhouse you can walk to, man. But I love the Powerhouse brand, and like they still exist certain places, but there's like in the southern half of the state, there's none.
Yeah, this one's fairly new too. It's like a year old. So
very cool. Very cool. What else you got, Mike? You got anything else, brother?
I think we're good. What did we do? About an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, easy, bro. Please join us again, man, because it was awesome talking shop.
Whenever you want, dude. I'll send you the link if you want to join. If not, that's cool too.
Our goal, you guys have me on.
Our goal initially, with this thing is to eventually like have a panel. So like,
cool.
You know what I mean? Like there could be 6 of us on here at once, and it's just what it is, and that's the panel. Cool. So like, we'll include you moving forward, and anytime you want to be a part of it, man, we'd be honored.
Cool. I got one quick question for you, G, just because it's relevant.
Okay.
Raiders draft pick, Brock Bowers. What'd you think?
He's incredible. I predicted it.
I don't follow college, so I don't know these guys.
All right, so yeah, Brock Bowers is unbelievable tight end, like electrifying tight end. Like he's the kind of guy who like will get the ball like a number one receiver will. Except he can block too, and he'll break tackles and all that. The crazy thing about last night's draft, bro, is that it was an NFL draft that had 6 legitimate quarterbacks in it. And I was absolutely positive we were going to get one, we being the Raiders, we're going to get one at 13.
They need
one.
And
all 6 were gone by the 12th pick.
Yeah.
I was like, and everybody knew that potentially the first 4 picks could be quarterbacks, but definitely like in the top 10, there were going to be 4 of them. But then the other 2, the guys from the Pacific Northwest, right? Bo Nix and Michael Penix.
Yeah. Well, Penix was the shocker. That was the shocker of the whole draft.
That they were going to be later in the first round, and they were both gone. I was like, wow. So like once he was gone, I thought I was looking at who was left, and I thought the dude Brock Bowers, and then there's a guy Dallas Turner, who's from Alabama, who the Vikings also got. They got JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner. Like I think he's going to be like an all-pro, legitimate dude as well. So I would have been cool with either one of them. I mean, the Raiders quarterback situation is what it is. That's the only thing. Like you wish they maybe would have gotten Penix. That's what I was hoping, that they would have gotten Penix at 13 because he can sling it. But
out of those 6 guys, who do you think is going to have the best NFL career out of those 6 QBs?
Oh man, possibly the number 2 pick, dude.
Jaden Daniels, right?
Yeah, from LSU. Possibly him. I mean, Caleb Williams. Everybody's so convinced that he's the next thing, and he could be a Mahomes or something. I don't know.
I don't trust the Bears organization. They screw up quarterbacks.
Well, they got him, and then they got the dude, the wide receiver that Penix threw to. They got him at 9 cool. Also. Roman Dunze was awesome.
Yeah, they definitely loaded up on talent, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, there's a couple guys who are still like legit, like could be like great NFL players. NFL is different. Like it's different than other sports where like there are guys in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds who end up being Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
So like there's a couple guys. There's a dude, Cooper DeJean from Iowa, who as as bizarre as this is, and it's about demographics and it's slightly about race, but it's really interesting. He'll be maybe the first defensive back to be drafted since Jason Sehorn, who's white.
Wow.
No white dudes play that position.
You're right.
So it's just
I never even really thought about that, but you're right.
He's a kick returner, punt returner, and he's a really good defensive back, coverage defensive back. So there's him, and then there's a dude, best nickname in the draft, Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama. Yeah, and he's legit too. And his nickname's Kool-Aid. And he's still on the board too. So like the Raiders, I think, have the 12th pick in the second round. So if they could score one of those two guys, that would be dope. So it's like, if you could get like an awesome impact offensive player and then an awesome impact defensive player, like that's a good draft. Like I said, the Vikings did that in the first round. They got like a guy who could be a franchise quarterback and a franchise defensive player. So
yeah, interesting.
Look at that little draft breakdown. Nobody saw that coming.
No, that was good. That was good.
Mike, who's your team?
Eagles.
Oh, dude, the Eagles, man. The rich get richer. The kid they got from Toledo. They say he's like the biggest sleeper in the draft because he's from a small college. But apparently he's like he could be a dominant D-back or whatever. Dominant one. So,
Yeah, I'm a casual Eagles fan. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't even checked out the draft yet. My son is diehard. So he knows all this stuff.
And they got they got Saquon Barkley this past year, which is
yeah. Oof.
Rich getting richer.
He's great.
Man.
Saquon's great.
Yeah.
He's
great.
great.
He's great.
Yeah, I'm a Penn State guy, so like I loved him in college. And like I would always say, oh man, I wish he was on the Raiders. Oh man. And I when the Giants have been struggling, I used to think to myself, oh man, Saquon deserves better than this. Like, it's like when you're the only weapon and they're handing you the ball, it's like how are you ever, the whole defense keys on you. It's like how do you ever gain yardage that way? And I feel like on the Eagles, he's gonna be so much more wide open to get work done. So
yeah. Eric, are you Giants?
My hometown team would be the Jets. My dad was a big Jet fan, but as a kid, I latched on to the Raiders. The Jets were always terrible.
Yeah.
The Raiders had cool uniforms, and I'm growing up as a teen in the mid '80s, and they were winning. They were in LA, they were winning the Super Bowl, so I kind of latched on to them.
Mm.
How'd you get into that, Greg? The Raiders?
It's funny, man. This is totally random, right? But my dad was a Raiders fan, so that was one thing. One of the backgrounds is that my dad was a Raiders fan. Also, like the Eagles too, because he went to high school and college in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a Raiders fan. So there's something about the Raiders, the mystique of the Raiders that always appealed to me. But what was funny is that when I was a kid in the '80s, my favorite football player was Eric Dickerson on the LA Rams, and my aunt worked in New York, but she had a job at like one of the TV networks, and she had to go to California every so often. So when she was going out there, I said to like my mom and dad, I'm like, yo, you got to tell her get me a Rams jersey, give me a Dickerson jersey, right? So she goes out and she comes back, but she comes back with Raiders gear,
Okay.
right? Because there was the other LA team, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, right? And she gave me I get back with a Raiders jacket and a Howie Long jersey for me.
And there ain't I'm sorry, but there ain't a cooler uniform than the Raiders.
There's not.
No.
And so then I had the fact that my dad loved the Raiders, and I was like 7 or 6, and I had the Raiders jacket, the Raiders jersey, and I was like, oh, that all of a sudden having it in my hands made me like fond of them. And then they had Bo Jackson, who's one of my favorite athletes ever. So like right in my formative years, when I'm 8, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, it's like the phenomenon of Bo, and he's on the Raiders. So that kind of like that Howie Long, who's a local guy, he went to Villanova. Those guys being on the Raiders in my formative years kind of like that locked it down for me. So yeah, so I've been a Raiders fan ever since. And unfortunately, Tara's a Raiders fan, and my daughters are Raiders fans now, so they carry that with them as well. They're Mets fans; they carry that with them. So I've made them. I couldn't just be like a Chiefs fan and a Yankees fan, and they could feel the joy of winning every year. They have to be afflicted with being a Raiders and a Mets fan and be heartbroken every year.
And me and G share that too. I'm a huge Mets fan too. So
That's
yeah.
But I always say all the comedians are Mets fans. Like if you look like Seinfeld and Chris Rock and Bill Maher and all those guys are Mets fans, because you have to have a sense of humor to be a Mets fan.
Right.
Like there's tragedy with the comedy.
Yeah. That you do.
How about you, Mike? This is the last thing we got to go. Who's your baseball team?
Yankees.
All right.
Sorry.
No. Here's the thing. I'm a Mets fan, but I can't be a Yankees hater. The reason I can't be a Yankees hater is because I love baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the history of the Yankees. Even if like I don't necessarily like the modern franchise, like the history. If you love baseball, then you got to love the history of the Yankees because of who played for the Yankees. And then one other thing is that when I was a kid, Mattingly was one of my favorite players. And then in the 90s, bro, my two childhood icons, after going through so much heartbreak, Daryl and Doc, both had resurgences.
I know. In my brain,
like when they came back in the Yankees, it was like they had a second lease on life.
I have wiped that.
I was always fond of the Yankees for that.
I have wiped that from my memory that they ever played put on those pitch. I just can't.
I'll always argue, Easy, though, that those first Yankees teams that were really good, because there was a while where they weren't good, right? Like in the 80s when they weren't good. Even though they had talent, right? They had Winfield and Mattingly and Ricky Henderson.
Yeah.
They weren't very good. But those initial Yankees teams that were good, that were entirely like raised in the organization, was like Jeter and Bernie and Rivera and Jorge Posada, right? And Paul O'Neill was on the Reds, but even Paul O'Neill is like very like low key guy. Like I like those teams. I didn't have any against those teams.
I rooted for them in the World Series when they were against the Braves for sure. Yep. And when they were against the Phillies, I got to
root against the Braves and the Phillies.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
And I go to 1 or 2 Yankee games a year. I'm don't like the Yankees, but I'm a baseball fan, and it's Yankee Stadium, and it's cool. So,
yeah, I don't hate the Mets either.
Yankee fans should not hate the Mets. There's no reason. You guys beat us. You beat us in the World Series. Like we have a reason. To hate
no, I get it. Yeah, but I named my son Nolan after Nolan Ryan, and he's got pictures of Nolan Ryan in his room on the Mets.
Very cool. That's very awesome. See, that's a true baseball fan, man. If you name your son Nolan, that's really cool.
That's super cool. Yeah,
really cool. Awesome, brother. Well, Easy, thank you for joining us, man.
Thank you, man.
And it won't,
my honor.
Won't be the last time, my brother.
All right, cool.
No.
All right, bro.
We'll try it again next week.
Take it easy.
Thanks again, dude. Bye, guys.
Peace. Good stuff, man.
Yo, that was good, man.
Yeah, no, it was great. It ran longer than I expected, but that's a good thing.
Sorry. Yeah. We could probably go on for like 5 hours, dude.
Oh, for sure. For sure we could. For sure we could. Let's go.